Good day. I am Dr. Joyful Mdluli. I'm with the International Astronomical Union's Office of Astronomy for Development, and today I'll be speaking about how astrotourism can be used as a catalyst for sustainable tourism, cultural heritage, and local community development. Throughout this presentation, I've included QR codes to links to the various content that is being displayed and discussed. Feel free to scan and go to the pages to read more about the information that is shared on the slides. At first glance, astronomy may seem disconnected from the challenges we face on Earth, such as poverty, inequality, education, or climate change. But astronomy is far more than the study of stars and galaxies. It inspires curiosity, creativity, and hope. It encourages young people to dream bigger. It strengthens education, connects cultures, and reminds us that we all share the same sky. In a world often divided, astronomy gives us perspective, showing us not only how small we are in the universe, but also how connected we are to one another. This recent image of the Earth taken during the last space mission to the Moon shows us and reminds us that we are all part of one Earth, no borders in sight, different race, or even different economic backgrounds, just one tiny blue dot in the universe. Before I can tell you more about the Office of Astronomy for Development, I'd like to highlight the International Astronomical Union, our parent body. The International Astronomical Union is a professional body of professional astronomers made up of 13,000 professional astronomers from 85 member countries. The mission of the IAU is to promote and safeguard the science of astronomy in all its aspects, including research, communication, education, and development through international cooperation. This is also the same organization that was responsible for denouncing Pluto as a planet. The IAU is driven by 5 strategic goals, and the Office of Astronomy for Development addresses specifically goal number 3 of it, that is that the IAU is set out to transform astronomy from a purely scientific endeavor into a driver of social and economic progress. The IAU has other offices in the center that look at other strategic goals. So in addition to the Office of Astronomy for Development, there is the Office for Astronomy Outreach that looks at how astronomy can be communicated with the general public, the Office of Astronomy for Education that looks at astronomy education at secondary and university level, as well as the Office for Young Astronomers. We also have a center that is responsible for the protection of dark and quiet skies. The Office of Astronomy for Development is a joint project between the International Astronomical Union and the South African National Research Foundation that is supported by the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. The OAD was established in 2011 and it is located in Cape Town, South Africa, hosted by the South African Astronomical Observatory. Our mission at the OAD is to help further the use of astronomy, including its practitioners, skills, and infrastructures, as a tool for development in every country by mobilizing the human and financial resources necessary in order to realize the field's scientific, technological, and cultural benefits to society. In simple, our vision is astronomy for a better world. In fact, this year, the OAD celebrates 15 years of existence. Since its establishment, the OAD has negotiated and established 11 regional offices around the world, based in Armenia, China, Colombia, Ethiopia, Jordan, the Netherlands, Nigeria, Portugal, Thailand, USA, and Zambia. And 2 of these offices serve as joint language centers, as well as one serving as a dedicated language center. I would like to highlight specifically our Southwest Central Asia Regional Office of Astronomy for Development that is hosted in Armenia. This office is responsible for carrying out the work of the OAD in the region. We work very closely with this office, with them taking lead in all of the activities carried out in the region. So what is the connection between astronomy and society? The OAD tries to encourage the astronomy community to work towards these goals through astronomy-based interventions that they execute as IAU OAD funded projects. It can be difficult to conceptualize how astronomy, an esoteric and specialized science, can contribute to the very immediate and real challenges that are facing society today. Astronomy is more than a science. It spans across disciplines, cultures, as well as technology. And it makes it a very versatile tool to address sustainable development challenges. The OAD funds and coordinates projects that aim to use astronomy to impact one or more of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially because we focus on development itself. It may not be obvious to everyone how these tools and methods and the content of the field of astronomy are relevant to the SDGs. However, the OAD has funded programs over the past 15 years that have addressed at least 13 of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals so far. This image here is a global representation of where all of the projects we funded so far have taken place. So the next slide gives a summary of the impact that we have globally, and this is just a geographic representation of where the projects have been implemented. So to date, we've supported 254 projects in 111 countries, invested 1.5 million euros in those projects that have reached over 2 million people, and we've implemented 14 calls for proposals, with the 15th one currently underway. In addition to funding annual projects, we also have 3 flagship projects that fall under 3 thematic areas. The first one looks at how we can use astronomy to stimulate local economies, and this is through Astrotourism. The second thematic area looks at how we can use astronomy for mental well-being. This is through our Astronomy for Mental Health flagship project. And the third one looks at using skills development or leveraging astronomy-related expertise to address global development challenges. And this is through our Astronomy Skills for Development flagship project. So for the purpose of this presentation, I'll be focusing specifically on the OAD Astrotourism flagship project. The aim of this project is to basically leverage astronomy and tourism to drive economic growth, social inclusion, and cultural preservation. The Astrotourism flagship project is rooted in 3 pillars. And this is economic development, social inclusion, and cultural preservation, as well as environmental sustainability. When we speak about economic development, astrotourism can drive economic growth in rural and underserved communities by creating jobs such as tour guides, hospitality roles, and also boosting local businesses like accommodations and restaurants. When we look at the environmental sustainability aspect of the flagship project, it also promotes environmental sustainability, and this is through advocating for the protection of dark skies and our natural ecosystems, while also encouraging practices that minimize light pollution as well as preserving our pristine stargazing environments. And then looking at the third flagship pillar, which is the cultural preservation and the social inclusion, equality is very vital. Astrotourism celebrates cultural heritage by sharing indigenous astronomical knowledge and traditional sky stories, but it also fosters inclusivity to ensure local communities are empowered and directly benefit from tourism initiatives. Our flagship programs are structured around this thing that we call the OAD flagship ecosystem. So this ecosystem basically is pillared around 4 key areas, which is resources, training, implementation, and community. And together, these pillars form part of a dynamic ecosystem that provides tools, knowledge, networks necessary to transform astronomy into a driver of positive change, either by individuals or communities from around the globe. So the first pillar that we look at is the astrotourism resources. So we have developed a wide range of openly accessible resources to support the global design and implementation of astrotourism initiatives around the world. These resources are intended to guide new entrants as well as existing practitioners into incorporating astronomy into their activities. In addition to these resources, we also have resources that our projects have created over the years that are available to the community at large. The second aspect of our ecosystem is the training component that looks at capacity building, which is very central to the flagship projects. It recognizes that in order for us to have sustainable growth, we require equipping individuals, communities, as well as institutions with the necessary knowledge and skills. And as such, we have created an online training course that is free of charge and open to anyone to introduce the flagship fundamentals, as well as providing practical guidance for initiative design as well as implementation. This is supplemented with in-person training that is normally co-developed with with partners in order for us to sort of kind of tailor in specific needs as well as deliver it in collaboration with our partners and our regional offices. So these sessions combine both the theoretical instruction as well as the experiential learning that we cannot offer through an online training course. And then it was also then further complemented with having an online community where people can continue to further engage with each other and share knowledge as well as resources. So speaking of the community, we have an online community that is hosted on Discord that is open to anyone, whether you're from the astronomy field or the tourism sector. Basically, this community is designed to be a knowledge-sharing space and a place where there's cross-sector collaboration, professional growth, as well as community building and peer learning. And it is designed for anyone who's interested in astrotourism, who is already in tourism, but also anyone who's just interested in just having astronomy and what kind of impact astronomy has in society. So everyone is welcome to join this community. It is open to everyone. But lastly, and most importantly, is the implementation of this. So one of the key ways in which we at the OED implement it has been through through the annual call for proposals. So we've supported, over the years, 17 projects and invested 100,000 euros in this astrotourism projects. So these projects have had various focuses, some looking at training, where they look at training young people to become astronomy entrepreneurs, certified tour guides, as well as adding astronomy to their portfolio. But we've also looked at how astronomy can be integrated with existing other tourism offerings like heritage tourism. So this was looking at foundational work to integrate astronomy into existing tourism initiatives. But we've also had projects that have looked at developing courses that can offer at university level so people can go into astrotourism. But we've also had a scientific tourism route that was developed in the Southwest and Central Asia region that was looking at a multi-country science tourism route that included various astronomical interests. So the map in this image basically shows where all of the OAD funded projects have taken place that are specifically for astrotourism. And in the next few slides, I'll be giving case studies of the projects that we have supported over the years. So the first project I'd like to highlight is a community-based project that was implemented in India called Astrostays. So this project was looking at training and supporting village residents to become astro entrepreneurs. So summary of this project is that they created jobs as well as employment opportunities for the residents within the communities, but also in addition to that expanded the tourism offerings where they collaborated with existing resorts to include astrotourism as a package. And they've also engaged, during the implementation of the project, they engaged with 680 travelers from the period that the project was being implemented. But there was also a key thing, which was the education and the training part of aspect that was also delivered. In total, 30 women, village women were turned into astro guides, as well as 7 disabled persons from this project itself. Another project I'd like to highlight was one that looked at guide training in Malaysia, and I see that there are also 2 other speakers that follow me that are from Malaysia. So this project looked at training professional tour guides to add astrotourism to the portfolio. So this obviously was something that was more of an upskilling project, but in that it also created more jobs and employment opportunities, where they also had observatories partnering with astro guides to bring tourists to their facilities in Malaysia. But then it also expanded the tourism offerings, where tour companies then started introducing astrotourism into their offerings. And also, in terms of education and training, there were 2 tourism institutes that then introduced astronomy as part of their syllabus when they trained their tourism students. But also on the ecotourism part of things, they've adopted the astrotourism in 3 city councils, but also developed astro parks within Malaysia. So this is the kind of things we talk about when we talk about astrotourism, that there are various offerings that can come from them. And then the last case study I'd like to highlight is also another community-based project, and this took place in 2020. It was implemented in 2025 in a island in St. Lucia. So this looked at training young people to become astro guides, creating jobs and diversifying tourism, since this is more of a cruise focused tourism area. So from that project, They trained 12 young adults who then became astro guides and are now offering stargazing as a tourism offering within the St. Lucia area. But if we look at it on a national scale as well, I'd like to point out the South African or the African example. In this case, I mean, when we look at Africa, we possess a very rich cultural and astronomical heritage. And alongside that, we also have unexplored dark sky that is vital to economic development. So South Africa then decided, the Department of Tourism as well as the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation came together to develop the National Astrotourism Strategy and Implementation Plan that goes from 2020 to 2023 to 2033. And this is basically looking at how astrotourism can be implemented on a countrywide or a national scale. So with South Africa hosting both the Southern African Large Telescope as well as the Square Kilometre Array project, it shows that we have strong astronomy backing. So how can we then take advantage of this infrastructure and then grow the astrotourism space as well? And I'd like to also highlight that recently, early this year, we actually had a workshop that looked at how we can also intertwine astrotourism and paleontology and archaeology and just basically create this wholesome experience and not just treat astrotourism as a single offering, but part of all of other astronomy other tourism products offerings. So at the OAD, we also have a global astrotourism survey. So this is us just trying to map out what offerings exist out there and how people can get involved and what are the best lessons, what works and what doesn't learn. So this is an ongoing initiative and the survey is open to anyone. So if you are someone out there who is doing astrotourism or is thinking about astrotourism, please feel free to complete our survey, but also look at the survey results that we have in order for you to get ideas of what is working and what is not working. And this is just a map of where all of the projects are being implemented at the moment. So I'd like to also highlight a few upcoming events that we have. So next week, Wednesday, we will be hosting an Astrotourism Community Exchange. So this is basically open to anyone who is already into astrotourism, but those who are also not part of astrotourism community yet who would like to go into this. We just want to connect astronomy, tourism, culture, and development and see how all of these things intertwine and how well they can work together. So I'd like to invite you all to join us next week, Wednesday, for this engagement. It is open to everyone. If you'd like to also give a presentation of the work that you're doing, we also welcome that. So you can just drop us an email. If you scan the QR code on this page, you will be able to get more information about the event itself. But I'd also like to highlight another opportunity, like I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, is that the OAD has an annual call for proposals where we support various projects that look at how they use astronomy to make a difference in society and in the communities. So this call is open and the deadline is the 31st of May. So if you are interested in submitting a proposal and you're not quite sure where to start, feel free to reach out to myself or our office, and we will be able to guide you through the proposal writing process in order for you to be able to submit a project that can be funded. So I'd like to summarize by saying that astrotourism should not be treated as a separate offering, but intertwined with what already exists, be it geoheritage, paleontology, archaeological. All of these different kinds of tourism can complement each other and create an educational experience that will stay with visitors for a lifetime. And it is also something that I'd like to highlight is that astrotourism can contribute towards sustainable tourism, towards cultural heritage, but also local community development. And in terms of how this can be translated to Uzbekistan, there are a number of ways in which this can be achieved. And this is, if we're focusing on the local community development scale, you can adopt the OED model of supporting grassroots projects in astrotourism. But if we're looking at on a national level, we can work with you very closely to connect you to the Departments of Tourism and the Departments of Science, Technology and Innovation. So we're more than happy to facilitate this connection in order for you to be able to also create your own strategy and implementation plan. But also just being part of our community, our astrotourism community, we have an online community that will provide you with a platform for resources, knowledge sharing, as well as help grow the astrotourism community in general. But likely, I'd also like to highlight one thing. While I've showed many images over my slides with different faces, I'd like to highlight the OED faces, the team that is based in Cape Town. And these are the faces that drive astronomy for development globally and are responsible for all of the work that we've been doing over the years. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.